So we are going to be doing revision on trigonometry and then introduce trigonometric identities. Okay. So first things first, we start with a bit of revision. What's the first thing I know? I know trigonometry, so ka, toa. What does this mean? Sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse. Cos of theta will be adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan will be opposite over adjacent. Now, last year in grade 10, you had to know the inverses as well, which was namely cosec, sec, and what's it? Cot. You don't have to know the inverses. You only have to know them for grade 10. From here on forward, we just work with these. Now, another thing that you had to know last year was this diagram. Cast diagram, where this is 0, 90, 180, and 270 degrees. And this one's also 360 degrees. So you remember this. This basically said in what quadrants what will be positive. So here all is positive, here sine is positive, here tan is positive, and here cos is positive. Good. Now from there we are going to get to a few examples as well. So let's take, for example, I have this one. And here we're also going to be proving the cross diagram of it. Good. I know this is -5, this is -12, and the other one will be 13. Now this is given information, so I don't have to calculate anything just yet. They can also give it in the form of a coordinate, where they say, but let's say Q in this case will be at -5 and -12. You remember these from grade 10. So if I had to say, okay, but what is sine of this one? So we call this angle theta. What is sine theta? What is cos theta? And what is tan of theta? So what will be sine of theta? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So remember, if you see the angle of theta, you are in reality standing there. So what angle or what side is opposite to you? The -12. So it will be -12 over my hypotenuse, which is 13. Can you see in this quadrant, sine is negative? What about cos? Adjacent of hypotenuse. So which side is adjacent to where you stand? -5. And my hypotenuse is? Can you see in this quadrant, cos is also negative? But let's look at tan. Adjacent over? Opposite over adjacent. Stoa. So opposite over adjacent. So in this case, it's going to be -12 over -5. Negative divided by negative gives me a positive. So in reality, it is just 12 over 5. According to my cos diagram, what's supposed to be positive in this quadrant? Tan. And in this case, tan is positive. Okay. Now, let's do the type of question you would have had in grade 10. They will just give us the information. Cos of theta equals to 8 over 17. And they will tell us, but this is where sine is smaller than 0. Now, according to my cast diagram, where will sign be negative? So if it's smaller than 0, it's most negative. You agree? So if it's smaller than 0, it is negative. So where will sign be negative but cos be positive? In which quadrant? Sign is negative and cos is positive. Will it happen here where everything is positive? No. Here where sign is positive? No, sign is given as negative, but cos is positive. Here tan is positive. Was any mention of tan? No. So what does that mean? It will lie here. Now, this angle will be known as theta. Now let's look at the information given. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this means that this side will be 8 and this will be 17. How will I determine the other side? Pythagoras. So I know 17 squared equals to 8 squared plus y squared. I do not know what it is, so I will call it y. So at the end of the day, what you will have to type into your calculator is the following. Square root of 17 squared minus 8 squared. What does that give? How much? 15. But now it's situational. We have to look at something. There's 0. This is always positive for my y-axis. This is positive for my x-axis. This is negative. This is negative. On what side of y does this lie? The positive side or the negative side? There's positive, there's negative for y. So this, which side does this point lie? On the positive side or negative side? On the negative side. So in reality, this will be negative 15. Now, that's without even having to look at the question that is given here. Now we're going to start with tan of theta. And we're going to be discovering a few things in this question as well. Now, what is tan of theta? It is opposite over adjacent. So in reality here, opposite is negative 15 over adjacent, which is 8. So let's call this question 1. Now let's start looking at question 2. What is sine of theta over cos of theta? What's sine of theta? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So it is negative 15 over 17 divided by cos is it's 8 over 17. Now let's simplify this. It's the same as saying negative 15 over 17 divided by 8 over 17. If I divide with a fraction, what must I find? I find my reciprocal. So this is the same as saying negative 15 over 17 times 17 over 8. What happens? These two cancel. So what am I left with? I'm left with negative 15 over 8. But what was tan of theta? It was negative 15 over 8. So this is our first identity that is introduced to us. We know that tan of theta is the same as sine of theta over cos of theta. Okay, so that's the first one that's introduced to us. Now let's look at the next one, which is sine square of theta plus cos square of theta. Now what is sine square of theta? Okay, what's sine? We said it is negative 15 over 17. But keep in mind now it's squared. Plus, what's cos of theta? We said cos of theta is 8 over 17. But now it's squared. Okay, what is 15 squared? Now keep in mind it's negative 15. So a negative times a negative is a positive. So that value will be positive. 15 squared is 150 something. 225. Okay. So 225 over what's 17 squared? 800 and you sure? 289. That makes more sense. 289. Okay, so 8 squared is 64, right? Over 289. Now what happens? If I add these two together, what will that give me? 225 plus 64 gives me 289. 64. It's 289, eh? 289 divided by 289 gives me. So this is our next identity that comes into play. So these are the things we have to learn in grade 11. So this identity is known as sine square theta plus cos square theta equals to 1. Yes. Now keep in mind, this identity can change a little bit. How can it change? I can say, but sine square of theta equals to 1 minus cos square of theta. What happened? I just took the plus cos over. Likewise, I can say, but cos square of theta equals to 1 minus sine square of. Now these are the identities that we are working towards, that we have to know in grade 11, and that tend to be a little bit more new. So, after knowing this, everything starts to become a little bit easier. Now, I am going to give you a question that I want you to attempt, and then I will do the corrections for it. So it's a class activity before we get to the homework activity. Now, the question states the following. 7 sine of theta plus 3 equals to 0. And they say that it lies between 90 and 270. Now, just the advice that I can give you on this. Whenever we work with trigonometry, we always want a what? A ratio. Né? So if I isolate the sine of theta, plus 3 goes over, it becomes negative 3. The 7, to get rid of it, I divide both sides by 7. Okay. And from here, you can attempt the question first, and I will continue to explain thereafter. Okay. The rest of the question is as follows. 1.1, what I want from you is cos of theta, and I want 1 plus tan square of theta. You can attempt the question and thereafter I'll do the corrections. Okay, So, after doing the questions, this is what we would have looked at. So, we know that this falls between one of these two, because it's between 90 and 270. But we can also see that sign is negative. So therefore, it will lie there. Now, I know sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so it's negative 3 and 7. If I calculated that side, it was 7 squared equals to 3 squared plus x squared. So x squared was equals to 40 at the end of the day. And x was square root of 40. You agree?
I got square.
Square root of 40. Or you got 2 square root 10. Yeah? Yeah, it's the same thing. So square root of 40 is the same as saying 2 square root of 10. So now we have to remember it is on the negative side of x. So it was negative square root of 40 or 2 square root 10. It's the same thing. So if I look at cos of theta was equals to negative square root of 40, or I'll give you the other option now, divided by 7. Or you could have said negative 2 square root of 10 divided by 7. Now we get to tan squared. So I've got 1 plus. Now what was tan? Tan is opposite over adjacent. So I've got negative 3 over square root of 40 squared. 1 plus negative 3 times negative 3 was 9. Square root 40 times square root 40 just gives me 40. This is the same as saying 40 over 40, which gives me 49 over 40. Okay.